We're asked to use the FOIL method to find the product and then to express the product in descending powers of the variable. Well, what is the FOIL method anyway? It's just a shortcut, a little mnemonic to help us keep track of all the things we have to multiply together. The F stands for the product of the first terms, so we would multiply 3x times 5x. The O is for the product of the outside terms. Well, the outside terms would be the 3x and the 4. I is for the product of the inside terms. That would be the 4 and the 5x. And then L is the product of the last terms, 4 times 4. And that's a pretty handy tool to use if you're multiplying a binomial times a binomial, because there's only 4 things to multiply together. And once you multiply those 4 things together, what we end up doing is just adding up those 4 products. Okay, sweet. That works good for a binomial. But what would happen if you had something like this? This binomial times this trinomial. Well, if you try to use FOIL, it won't work. For one thing, you run out of letters. We have more than 4 products here. So rather than focusing too much on FOIL, we can think of it this way, and what I'm getting ready to tell you is equivalent to FOIL. What you would do is take the first term here, the 3x, and distribute it through the second binomial. So that means we would take the 3x times the 5x, which is the distributive property, really, this times this, and then this times this. 3x times 5x is 15x squared. Well, that was just the product of the first terms, right? And then we're going to take 3x times 4. That's going to be a plus because they're both positive. 3x times 4 is 12x. Well, that was the outside terms, but it's truly just taking the 3x and distributing it through the parentheses. Now I'm going to take this 4 and do the same thing. I'm going to take this 4 and I'm going to distribute that through the second factor. So 4 times 5x is 20x. By the way, that was the inside terms. And then 4 times 4 is 16. So it turns out that ends up giving me first, outside, inside, last, without really thinking about where they came. They strictly came by first distributing the 3x and then distributing the 4. Now let's collect these like terms. The 2 terms in the middle are both x terms. So I can put those together. So I have 15x squared plus 12 and 20 gives me 32x plus 16. So we've got the product. It's in descending powers of the variable, which means it's x squared, then the x term, and then the constant. Okay? Now let's see how that same method would work for this problem, even though I'm not going to really use the term FOIL. I'm going to take 6x and I'm going to distribute it through the parentheses. So I'm going to take 6x times x squared. Well, 6x times x squared is 6x cubed. And then I'm going to take 6x times a negative 3x. Be careful of the signs. 6x times a negative 3x is a negative 18x squared, because I've got x times x. And then the 6x times the 7. Well, 6x times 7, both positive, so it's going to be plus. 6 times 7 is 42x. All right, that was taking care of the 6x. I distributed it through the parentheses, the second factor. And now I'm going to do the same thing with this. Keep in mind, this is a negative 5, so it's a negative 5 I'm going to distribute through. So I've got to watch those signs. All right, negative 5 times x squared. Negative 5 times x squared is a negative 5x squared. Well, look what I'm going to do. I'm going to write this right underneath this x squared term. I don't have to. I could write it over here. It'd be fine. But I'm going to have quite a few terms floating around, so let's just keep the x squared terms lined up. Now I'm going to take the negative 5 times the negative 3x. Negative times negative is a positive. 5 times 3 is 15x, so it's plus 15x. Again, lining up the x terms. And then negative 5 times a positive 7 is a negative 35. So I've taken care of all the multiplications. The 6x was distributed through, gave me this. Negative 5 was distributed through, it gave me this. Now I'm just going to add together my like terms, or combine the like terms. 6x cubed doesn't have anybody to go with him, so we're just going to bring it down. These are both negative, right? Negative 18 minus 5 is negative 23. X squared. Don't forget, when you're adding like terms or subtracting like terms, the variable doesn't change. Just combine the coefficients. And then here I'm going to have a 42 plus 15. They're both positive, so it's going to be, what, 57x. Then bring down the minus 35. And so there's the product of that binomial times that trinomial.